for the last 5 years.
You've done the same thing.
You've never, ever came home at 7:45. But this one time in 5 years, you come home at 7:36. That's 6 minutes later. Because you stopped at the gas station, didn't text me and say, baby, can you get gas real quick?
Yeah.
You come in, my abandonment's inflamed. I flip out. Where have you been? This is banana. This is where I say by low functioning, right? You're able to stay in your high functioning, but you understand the low functioning so that you're not judging me and you're not staying high functioning, which can be transactional at times, and saying you're tripping. I'm pulling out. This is too much for me. So now what you did was you dipped down to the low functioning with me. And now we both cannot function in this relationship. Hybrid means I need you to say high functioning and go, okay, my baby, my woman's in this low functioning space because she's honest and we are really intimate, not sex, the true intimacy, which is vulnerability and knowing each other. I know she has these abandonment issues. I ain't experienced them in 3 years, but this is the day it's here.
Yep.
Baby, listen, I went to the gas station. This is what I got and what I did. Let me pray over you. Let's have a conversation about it. What do you need in this moment for you to be good?
That part.
And in the 5 years we've been together, 3 years, the 1 year, the 2 years, you tell me one time I gave you a reason not to trust me.
There it is. Dear future wifey.
Okay, scripturally, the Bible says your Father has already designed and purposed you.
I experienced an invitation of God this morning.
So you got to become an elite decision maker.
Elite decision maker.
He said, because you are one fleshly decision away from losing it all.
Etched in my mind is what true submission to Christ looks like.
I gotta maintain that secret connection I have with God.
I'm so full and don't want to belabor this letter.
And I understand how important it is for men to disciple men, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
I've traded worldly pleasures to live a God-centered life.
The encounter I just had, I just need to rest in it.
Help us to be considerate, creative, and courageous lovers.
I love you. Your future hubby. Welcome to Dear Future Wifey Podcast. I'm your host, Laterra Whitfield. Listen, are you still shacking up with us? If you're still shacking up with us, can we get a commitment? Hit that subscription button and subscribe. Make sure you turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified about upcoming episodes. While you're at it, visit the description, sign up for the mailing list, and go ahead and join our Patreon so you can see BTS of the podcast, me on tour, and just get an inside look into the life of Laterra Whitfield. It's quite entertaining. Well, this is a person I've been wanting to have on the podcast. This woman has been going super duper viral because she has a no-nonsense approach when talking to anybody. But the videos that's been going viral is her interviews with Cam Newton and Nick Cannon because she's going to keep it all the way real. Well, today we're going to turn the conversation on her as we uncover her journey of love. So without further ado, welcome to the Dear Future Wifey Podcast, my homie, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. How you doing, Queen?
I'm so good, Laterra. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having this platform. It's, it was destined for us to be here, and not just be here, but also become friends.
Yes.
Right?
So how did we get here?
So first of all, literally almost a year ago, my fans were like blowing my DMs up. Like, you need to be on Dear Future Wife. You need to do this. And I was like, okay, well, it'll happen. Let it do its thing. I was like, reach out to him, see how he feels and see if we can. And then recently with the Cam Newton episode that went viral, they didn't just come in my DMs and flood. They were literally on the stories tagging you like, you need her on. So I reposted the tag and said, okay, well, let's see if this is, within God's will.
I said, absolutely.
And you said, let's do it. I said, let's do it.
And we got on the phone.
And talked for 5 hours. We didn't, literally. I was trying to watch a football game. You were just trying to book the flight to get me here. And we were on the phone for 5 hours.
For 5 hours, chopping up, getting all in your business.
But with amazing conversation, with a lot of very similar and very different perspectives on things, and a lot of emotional intelligence, meaning we were able to just not agree with each other's perspective, but see it and have an understanding for it. And then even, from the airport, we sitting up 2-3 hours talking. We're like, we got to go do the podcast tomorrow.
Yeah. And what's so dope about all of this is the fact that the reason why I wanted you on the podcast is because you do have an unconventional thought process when it comes to what you desire desire in marriage, what you desire in dating. And I've never heard that before. And so I was like, I love it when I get a chance to talk to people that open up my mind to say, okay, these are different perspectives. Share with the people your background, because not only are you a therapist, but, and with the credentials of doctor preceding your name, but you've been on some TV shows where you've actually exercised your career and your practice in real time on television. On what shows?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a doctor of psychology. I'm a psychology expert and life coach. I developed and co-produced Teen Mom Family Reunion, which is the biggest, show on MTV. Our first season, we got nominated as the best unscripted reality show on the network, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
And
congratulations.
So, thank you. So did that, and then went on to do a few other shows where I come on as the psychology expert and life coach as well. And and then I'm in private practice every day. I'm on tour right now. I'm on tour every single weekend for the next 6 months, not just only in the States, but internationally. We have Canada, we have Nigeria, we have London, and we have a few others that we're going to add to the date. So then I have my book, Mental Detox, that I wrote about 10 years ago, and it was a bestseller. And I thought it was done being the bestseller.
And
then all of a sudden, it's like revisiting being a bestseller. And then I have my new book coming out called The Wilderness. And
Wilderness, what is that about?
It's about, we use Moses' journey as a metaphor for it. And him getting to the Red Sea and how it splits. And once they get over the Red Sea, where God hasn't split on dry land, and dry land is a metaphor for nothing being left on your feet. And so when you cross over, there's no residue. And so...
Ooh, hold on now, Dr. Cheyenne, don't let me... You're a preacher? You're a preacher now?
No. Listen, I'm just here to do a job. Like I told Cam, I'm just here to provide expertise. But when they cross over on dry land, I believe, right, from my interpretation of it, that the land is dry, so that on your feet there's no residue, and you're able to come across the Red Sea and have this renewed mindset. And the reason why he closes up the Red Sea on the Egyptians is so that you can't go back. And I talk about the wilderness being that they crossed the Red Sea, meaning they're supposed to be free now. But because when they got there, instead of them being grateful and saying thank you, they said, we need water, we need manna, we need bread. And God said, well, your will or mine. Okay, hold on. Your will, I'll give you water and I'll give you manna. And then what I'll do is put you in the wilderness for 40 years. And then the promised land, proceeds that. And so in my book, I talk about how the promised land and the wilderness is not a physical destination. It is a mental space that you put yourself in. And so every day we're either in the wilderness or in the promised land. And that depends on where we choose to be. And God meets us where we are. We don't meet him where he is. And so what that means is if we choose our will to be in the wilderness, then God will meet us there. And because he's our provider of all things, he will provide us the tools needed to sustain the wilderness. However, if we willingly either align with God's will or choose to be in the promised land, then like the Bible says, scripture says, God says, even in hell, there I am. So he says, if you will yourself to be in the promised land, then he will meet you where you are in the promised land and provide you the tools to maintain the promised land. And so I know both all too well. And I have been in the promised land for years, because I've been applying God's principles. I always say, knowledge is not power. The implementation of the knowledge is power. And so to know God's principles are his will or whatever principles that is pointless. Are you implementing them? Are you following through with them? And so the book talks about a lot of that, but it also helps people understand, like, what the hell is the wilderness, right? What is the promised land? How do I get there? And if I'm in the wilderness and I'm just here trying to survive, because the wilderness is just that, it's a war zone. It's wild, right? There is no thriving in that place. And the tools that it takes to sustain the wilderness are not the tools you can even bring or use in the promised land, because the promised land, there's no war. And so you can't come there war ready. You can't come there, armed. You have to enter the promised land disarmed and surrendered and accepting and in full faith and leaning not onto your own understanding, but trusting God in all your ways. So that's the promised land mindset. That mindset will get you demolished in the wilderness. And so the book talks about that. It goes in a lot more detail, of course. But yeah, I'm excited for that because
when is that coming
people
out?
Need that. We're shooting for my literary team and I, hopefully October 2024, no later than November.
This year.
This year. I'm so excited. It's like the next level to my first book, Mental Detox. Mental Detox is like about, cleaning out your garden, taking inventory, and it's like the beginning stages of sense of self. And the wilderness is like, no, we here. What are you doing?
So it's
Let's figure
interesting.
this out.
Let me ask you this. Where does this biblical background come from?
So interesting enough, my father's family is Black, so we grew up Christian on that side, but my mother's side is Hispanic, Mexican, and French Creole, and we grew up Catholic on that side. And because I was raised more with my mother's side, I went to catechism, made my first communion, and I was baptized and raised as a Catholic, right? And so even went to catechism as a young girl. And so as far as the biblical principles and First Commandments and all that, Catholicism is very deeply rooted in that. So I had to know that even to make my first communion.
Yeah.
And then as I became a teenager, my dad's side started to introduce me to Bishop Noel Jones, which was in LA, right? Which is where I'm from.
And as God begins
come on. You right? He does his head. And so I went there at like 13. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I'm not playing. I went in there, Catholic church, you kneel, sit, and you quiet. Don't you say a peep. Don't you chew a gum.
Yeah. And
I went to Bible study and the church was just on fire. And I was 13 going, what the heck? Like, what is anointment? What is like the Holy Ghost? But the cool thing was I immediately started to feel it in myself. So I wasn't in awe or in fear of it. First, I was shocked by it. And then I'm like, as Bishop Jones is preaching, like my spirit is just jumping. I'm like, whoo. And listen, and love my Catholic family, okay? I am definitely a Catholic little girl who grew up. But that was a day that I never stopped coming to Bible study. I followed him from Greater Bethany to City of Refuge. And then I found Bishop Jakes. And I said, oh, Lord, have mercy. And them two paired together. Oh, my God.
A force to reckon with.
And let me tell you, I got so healthily obsessed with the way they taught the word that my hunger and appetite for the word just consumed me. And I literally would watch YouTube videos Monday through Saturday because on Sunday I'd be at church. I start flying to Dallas just to come to Potter House, just to see Bishop in person, my mother and I, and my girlfriends and I. And so every Sunday I was glued to the TV and I wouldn't watch just a sermon. I'd be watching it all day. I'd be running at the gym working out and I'm on YouTube, Bishop, the word. And so Cathology helped give me a lot of discipline and structure. And I'm not taking from it, but I didn't get a lot of the principle and the word from it. But when I started to come to more of the, which I think we're all Christians, but I say Christian church, the word just awakened in me and it started a different journey. And interesting story, when they first brought me to Bible study at like 12 or 13, I told my auntie Charisma, I was like, I'm not sure about this Jesus guy. I remember I'm 12 or 13, I'm a kid. Yeah. I'm like, he ain't the intersector. Like, why do I have to talk to him to talk to God? God's my God too, right? So she's laughing at me and we're at Bible study. And I'm telling her and all of her Bible study friends and constituents, like this little girl's like, and I don't know if I want to meet Jesus, but I don't in my mind. And I'm upset. And my auntie just was so loving. And she was just so gentle. And she was saying, listen, she would sit me down and show me videos of Jesus and try to teach me. And I'm like, no, I'm going straight to God. Ain't no in Jesus Christ's name.
So how'd you feel in Catholicism when you had to go through the Mother Mary and all that stuff?
Right. So I still had a problem. I want to talk directly to God. I wanted a relationship because what I was saying as a little girl was I felt like the liaison, was a barrier between God and I. And I want to take this moment to pivot really quick because that is what a lot of people have a problem with when they feel religious versus God.
Relationship.
There you go. And they look at it like religion or Moses or Jesus or Mary are these barriers between them and God. When the Bible says God is closer than your breath. So if he's closer than my breath, he is me. We are one. So why do I have to go through this to get to that? As a young girl, this is my perspective. Yeah. And my Aunt Charisma, she just kept showing me things, kept taking me to church, but not in a way that I felt like I felt smothered, right? And she let me have my opinion in it. She let me feel how I felt in it. I never felt crucified because of it. I never felt dismissed. She was delivering me as I was trying to understand what this was. Oh, she was so amazing in this. And so, anywho, long story short.
Is she still around?
Yes, she's still around.
Shout out to you, Auntie.
Yes.
Because I love how you can, because again, if you heavy-handed with the word, you be like, now listen, you don't question God.
Come on.
See, back in the day, he said, don't you question God. Don't you ever question God.
Oh, no.
And then it makes you go, well, these things that are happening in my life, I can't even question God when bad things happen or whatnot. And any good relationship, you should be able to ask questions.
Yes.
And so we taught, unfortunately, some of the old school church taught people not to have a healthy relationship with God. Like God was this being sitting on the throne, judging your every move, and you're walking on eggshells around him instead of saying, God, I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't know why my grandma got cancer. I don't know why I lost my child during delivery or whatnot. And you question these moments with God. And God is such a gracious God that he's available to answer those questions.
And listen, God is omnipresent.
Yep.
God is the Alpha, the Omega. God is closer than you breathe. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. And with that, it's like with that, the understanding should be, I'm not ever going to understand all of this.
Teach.
And so with her, it was more of her facilitating me and saying, well, what else, what other questions do you have? While she's praying over me when I'm not even in her presence. And so I remember calling her like, Auntie, okay, so I understand Jesus this, and she's like, and she would get, when I say overly excited, yes, she'd be like, she's getting it. And then all of a sudden, Auntie moved, God moved Auntie as a vessel out the way. And he said, you ready? I got you. I got you. Yeah. And what he showed me was, I was always in relationship with you.
Yep.
Right? You were eclipsed. And when I say eclipses, by the trauma, by the heartbreak. And so you took your worldly experiences because you didn't have the understanding of me yet as a little girl, and you tied me to it. But I also told you to be in the world or not of the world for a reason. And so as he's teaching me through experience, it broke so many chains. I mean, it shifted my perspective. I remember asking God as a young girl, because my mom, she had suffered from addiction. She's sober now, thank God. But I remember as a young girl going, I don't understand. I don't understand, God. Why is my mom on drugs? I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't understand it. I was always, God created me, y'all. Yep. So don't judge me. He created me. He knows my personality. Yeah. He knows how I talk to him, and it works because we have an amazing relationship. But I was like, God, I don't like it. Yeah. As a young girl, I mean, about 11 or 12, maybe even 10. And he said, listen, baby, in order for you to understand it, I'd have to allow you to experience it. And I said, guess what? I'm good. I will lean not onto my own understanding.
In all my ways, I'll acknowledge you, allow you to direct my path.
Trust you. And when I did that, as time went on, he taught me how to surrender.
Good.
And as I got into my first relationship and became engaged, the more I fell in love with this man, the more my trauma just inflamed. And I was even more mad at God because I'm like, what is going on here? Why is this happening? And he said, because you won't surrender to what is going on. You're still in the savior role, trying to save your mom. You are still allowing her decisions to have a direct impact on you. But if you would just surrender, because life is meant to be lived like this, not like this. This is surrender. And when we live life like this, because experiences and emotions are supposed to flow through us. The Bible says emotions are fickle, honey. They're supposed to flow through you. But watch this. If pain is flowing through you and you clench, guess what you're holding on to? Pain.
The anger and the pain.
And you have the power to surrender to it. And once you surrender to it, I'm telling you, that thing just moves out of your way.
Teach.
It moves out of your way. And so with my mother, I was clenching. I'm mad. Why is she on drugs? Why is this happening? Maybe if I do this, she can shift. Maybe if I help her do this, she can shift. Maybe she could. And it was always that. And God said, no. Maybe if you just let it go. So I told God, guess what? All right, I'm going to trust you. But while I trust you, detach me. Detach me from everything that has to do with her. but I'm still going to provide for her. I'm still going to make sure I'm loving on her. I'm taking her calls. She got a cell phone in case emergency happens. She got food and she got shelter. But I got a hands up because it's ruining my relationships.
That's good.
Because I'm abandoning my relationships. I'm showing up abusive because the abuse that she is not intentionally trying to project onto me is her addiction. And when I say abuse, it wasn't physical or emotional. I'm talking about just not being. Abandonment is an abuse in its own sense. I have, because we teach what we know, but we create who we are. And my mother created from her abandonment that she, showed up in my world at the hands of her addiction, not intentionally. She created a broken little girl. And I started to show up broken in my relationships. And broken is hurtful. And hurt people. And so I said, I'm going to let it go. And I told God, and I said, listen, okay, God, I said, if this is your will, I promise to God, I said, if this is your will for her to be on drugs for the rest of her life, guess what? I'm rolling with it. But just let me heal. Let me be separate from that. Not from the addiction, because I'm going to roll with it till the wheels fall off. But let me be healthy. How do I get healthy? But I'm going to surrender to that. And if I told him, I said, God, but if you have this in your will, I trust you. And I love you and trust you so much right now that if this is in your will, let's roll it out. Then drug addiction it is for the rest of her life.
Wow.
And guess what? I'm good with that. And I was really good with it. This wasn't something I was saying, I want to fail. I got to a place of me and God's relationship being so deep, Lateris, that I said, yo, to this day, whatever it is, all I know is I trust you. And all I need to know is I trust you. Run the play. And when I said that really quick, I can't make this up. My mom was 100% healthy, running the streets, 100% healthy. All of a sudden, she calls me. She says, Shy, I can't lift my arms.
What?
I can't make this up. I can't lift my arms. I'm like, huh? Okay. So first is she couldn't lift her arms. And all of a sudden, she no longer could move any of her limbs that had to do with her fingers and her hands. Hold on. Her back goes out. So now she can't walk. Her limbs are gone. Her spine is messed up. So I'm like, I'm not thinking anything of God. I'm just like, oh, Lord, have mercy. Let me get her to the emergency. Let's get her some help. She ends up needing full-on back surgery, 8-hour, 10-hour back surgery. Long story short, as soon as I surrendered, it not only broke the chains within me that was connected to her decision-making, her addiction, right, and my abandonment. When I tell you literally and figuratively, it broke the chains in her. It broke her back. It broke her inability to even do things that she needed to be on the streets on drugs. My mama had back surgery and surgery went well. From that day of her back being pretty much broken, arms not able to move, my mom has not, knock on wood, y'all, because y'all know addiction, she has not touched a pipe since that day.
How long ago was that?
Maybe about 8-ish years now.
Really?
Literally. To that day, she runs my company.
Wow.
She's a VP. She runs our home. My mom walks, jogs, and does everything. If my mom wanted to go right now and go hit a pipe, go and indulge in drugs again, she could, because all her limbs are working now. Her limbs are working now. And I say that to say,
what's her name?
Kim.
Kim, shout out to you. My family struggles with drug addiction. And so I love hearing testimonies of people who overcame it. And so thank you. Thank you for overcoming the battle of drug addiction. I salute you, Queen. You're an amazing champion.
Thank you, Laterra. Seriously,
that means a
you.
lot to me. I adopted my nephew because my sister struggles with drug addiction and whatnot, and he was put in foster care and whatnot. So when I hear stories about drug addiction, and my brother, I haven't seen my brother in over 20 years.
Wow.
Because he's on the streets on drugs. He's one of those type of guys that doesn't want the family to see him strung out. So he'll just isolate. And about 20 years ago, he called and told me, he said, hey, listen, this drug dealer had a gun to his head and said he was about to kill him because he thought that he was the addict that owed him some money. And his homeboy was like, no, that's not him. That's not him. And the dude said, man, you almost died tonight. He said, somebody praying for you at home. You need to go be with your family.
You got intercessors.
That's what the drug dealer told my brother. My brother called me And he was like, man, listen, he told me the story. I said, I'm coming to get you. He was on the streets in Fort Worth, which is a neighboring city to Dallas. I drove out to Fort Worth, got him. He stayed about a week and went right back on the street. And I ain't seen him since. And that was 20-something years ago. I've been married, divorced. My kid done grew up. She's married. He's missed all of this. You know what I'm saying? And my mom, and she's still praying that, before she ever passed, she want to see her son again.
Love that you said that, because my grandmother who raised me, because my parents were 15 and 16 when they had me. Obviously, mom got addicted to the drug that my dad was selling. But before she was her praying. And I remember saying to her, Mom, because I call my grandmother Mom too. She's my mama. I would say, Mom. And she would say, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just praying for your mom. And I used to get so mad. And I used to say, stop praying for her. Mm-hmm. And you the one that want her off. I ain't even tripping, but I was. Mm-hmm. But my thing was, let it go. Let it go. Stop telling me. Every time you tell me, I have to face the reality that it is that. But I want to say this. My grandmother, my mother's mom, she died last year. She was in our home on hospice, and she died in my home, took her last breath. She wanted what your mom wanted. All she wanted was, before she died, to see her baby be clean. Sober. Yep. She didn't just get to see her be sober for, say, a year or so. She got to see her child, my mother, be sober for years. Yes. One. And my mother scrubbed the floors, changed her diapers, changed her bed, gave her medicine, cleaned her, bathed her private area. I mean, my mother literally on her hands and knees took excellent, crazy care of her mother. And so for my grandmother, it wasn't just, she's getting well taken care of in this beautiful home with her family and love. She got her baby to come full circle, and her granddaughter who she raised to come full circle and take full care of her. Listen, y'all. This is my, listen. I said I wasn't going to do, I'm doing, listen. Because I did the Be Simone podcast, and I opened up for the first time about my mom and addiction and so forth. And people flooded the comments and said, that's my story, Doc. My mom is still on drugs. I'm still struggling. Just like your mom, I'm still praying. Let me tell you something. I'm not saying that this is going to happen for everyone, but I do want to say this. When God says he will give you back the time that the locusts and the cankerworms took, no request returns void. No request. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen with your loved one or your parent or your father or your child. But what I am saying is continue to pray, continue to trust the process and trust God, and surrender. Don't pray with resistance. Pray with trust and tell God that you good with whatever his will is, because his will is what is needed and what's supposed to happen. And I'm telling you, because when I wake, my mom never combed my hair. She never cooked breakfast for me. When I wake up in the morning, my mom is saying breakfast is cooked. My mom has coffee in my office before my sessions. My mom is cooking dinner and breakfast for my brother and I. Hold on. My mom is making calls and running my whole business. There's times that I wake up at the beginning. First I was at the beginning, I was like, well, let's see how long this how long it lasts.
You're a little skeptical.
Then when I got on 3 years and 4 years, and then years kept going on, I would just lay in my bed and wake up, and I would hear her downstairs singing and tooting, and Yolanda Adams she loved. She'd have her gospel music on. She'd have Bishop Jakes on. She's singing. She's cooking breakfast, and I would wake up and I would just sit in bed and I would go, God, yes, you ain't playing about me.
Talk about it.
And your word doesn't return void.
That's what he said. And
the best thing I could have ever done was line up with you. And I'm living in your principle right now. Yes. The time that the locust and the cankerworm took is here. Yep. I'm like, that's my mom downstairs. And so I would go in her room sometimes and look at her sleep. We have a big pool. She takes a dip in the pool every day. I look in the back and she got her cell phone. She done put the music on. The boom box is booming. And she just in the pool on the floaty, just going. She's as happy as she could be, Lateris. And I just look out the window and I'm in awe, not just of her, but I'm like in awe of God's work. And and every time I do it, this is my own joke, me and God, I can hear him say to me, he go, who's your daddy? And I love it. And I just start laughing. I'm like, God, why are you like this? Why are you like this? And then I pray and I ask that everyone gets this relationship with you.
Teach.
This relationship, because I'm telling you, when you are anchored like that, in a covering, in a source like that, you no longer are tripping or in despair of any resources because you anchored and plugged into the source.
Teach.
And so for y'all, again, if you're praying and you're saying, I can't hear him, I can't see him, my favorite affirmation still to this day is, God, I don't hear you, louder. Come on, God, speak louder.
That's good.
God, louder. Or God, I don't feel you, louder. I need to see more. Make it clear, God. Come on, make it clear, because I'm trying to listen. I don't need you to drag me. I just need to listen. I'll take the step. I'll be obedient, but I need to hear louder. And when I do it, he comes in louder.
Let me tell you something. You got that oil on you. I didn't know you had this side of you. Yeah, because you get the cussing and carrying on.
I was just about to say, tell them the truth. You told me. Now, Doc, you can't curse on this platform. I said, oh, shoot. I said, God, I can't hear you, God. A little louder. A little louder.
I said, don't be coming on here cussing, because you're going to be cussing. And she said, well, I guess God got the, hold my tongue.
Because on the phone, you said, the first conversation, you said, so Doc, you go from real anointed, like, and real preachy, to cursing. It's like, what you want? But in the same sentence.
I'm like, this is so confusing.
I'm like, yeah, God took his time with me. He really took his time with me.
It's so confusing. Because I was like, gosh, because it's not that you're speaking biblical truth as like I call it a lukewarm Christian. Somebody but you're rooted in it. Like, and it was just I was like, this is contradictory. It's like she's so deep in the word, but then she'll just start going off and cussing like a sailor. I was like, what? I was just like, it was throwing my ear off.
Like, I'm a thumbprint of God. He's trying to show you that he comes in all forms, okay?
He's showing me he can use anybody.
He can use anybody.
Let me tell you this, but another point that I want to make about where you said that, when people are believing that God can restore the years that the cankerworm has stolen, and, they may not get a chance to see their loved one delivered from alcoholism or drug addiction or whatever that is. They may not. The caveat I would like to share is that, and God still can return everything. He can restore the years of your youth. That even if it's not by your parent coming back and cooking breakfast for you, or putting coffee on your desk or whatnot, or seeing your loved one swim around in the pool, that God can send people in proxy of what you missed and bring somebody else as a surrogate mom, as a surrogate father, someone that stands in the gap and begins to love on you and share with you the love that you so desperately desire from that loved
deserve.
One.
And deserve.
Desired
and not
deserved.
God can, God will.
God will.
God is doing everything right now.
Yes.
Okay? He doesn't leave or forsake us. It's not that he's not doing, it's that we're not receiving.
There it is.
Or we're eclipsed.
Yep.
And so our job, just like with love, is to break down the barriers that are keeping us from receiving God's love, his omnipresence. He's doing right now. He's being and doing. It's us. We have the barriers, and our barriers are what he already told us, caught up in these worldly things that are fickle, that in a lot of times are just our illusion. And this is why God says, call a thing that ain't as though it is.
Yes.
Because he's saying you can move a mountain.
Yes.
And so the mountain is just there as an obstacle or a barrier if you will see it as that. Or it can be looked at as a mountain I learned to climb up to get over to the other side.
Teach.
It's how you perceive it. And for me, I perceive my mountains as, okay, God, I said we about to burn some calories today. I'm at the top. And when I'm at the top, like Moses, do I get to hear your voice?
Teach.
Do I get to have a conversation with you?
Teach.
What do I get at the top? And then when I look down, it's not me going down, meaning lower level. It's, I get to go down to not the valley, but green pastures. See, it's what you will have it to
All
be.
about perspective.
And the promised land is here. And so every morning I say we all have one job, is to be happy. I create the promised land in my mind through my thoughts and my emotions. And I'm always not feeling connected, but feeling fused and as one with God. And that's where I say, well, hey, whichever way it goes, I know it's meant because it's your will. And if I trust your will, really trust it, then I'm saying run whatever play. Throw it. I'm just going to try to be wherever I can be on the field. Yes,
I love that. And the one thing that the takeaway from old grandma of yours, what's her name so we can honor her? Mariah. My grandma Mariah, is to pray without ceasing. A lot of times we give up because we don't see that thing come to pass, but you never ever lose if you pray without ceasing. That's one thing that in our generation we've given up on. 100%. We'd be like, well, prayer don't really work because I've been praying and then this didn't happen. And at the end of the day, it's like, yet. I always look at stuff as yet. I prayed and this didn't happen yet. And if you continue to pray, what other option do you have? You can complain, you can murmur, you can sit there and be negative and be like, well, I mean, this, and then stop praying. And the devil say, yeah, that worked. Come on. That worked. I got him to stop praying. At the end of the day, Jesus says, I pray that your faith fails not. And so that's where the devil, the secret battleground, is in our mind when he causes us not to pray, when he causes us to lose faith, when he causes us to give up.
Keep going. That's the eclipse.
And the minute that you give up, then the devil say, well, that was easy. Now let me move on to somebody else.
And guess why the devil's able to creep in?
Teach.
Because once you stop preaching, you lose hope. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. And when the heart is sick, we got all these sick, see, I almost cursed.
There you go.
We got all these sick people walking around here. And once you are sick, that is the wilderness.
There it is.
Once you are sick, that's the devil's playground.
Teach.
Because if I can get you sick in your mind, listen, Bishop Jake said it best. I don't want your car, your woman, your house. But if I can get that thing up there,
it is.
I'll have you destroy it all. I'll have you get addicted to drugs and destroy your whole family. I don't got to take your wife. If I can get you your mind to get you to cheat, I can get her to divorce you. And if I don't get her to divorce you, sure stay, but it'll never be the same. You'll have a house that's homeless. So all he needs to do is get here. And again, once the heart is sick, at the result of no hope, then there's nothing left, because hope and faith at the peak are the same thing.
Teach. Let me ask you this. Your journey of love, are you looking for a man that's a believer? Do you desire a man that is rooted and grounded in the Bible, a Christian?
So I don't desire a man like that. It's a non-negotiable. So I wouldn't even be with a man who, even if he was, say, non-denominational, but he's like, look, I don't have denomination. I'm not into no religious stuff. However, I'm godly. I read the Bible. There's principles I follow, because, a man who is double-minded, and I say double-minded because if you have no principles, then what are you standing on? What is your blueprint? What is holding you accountable? What are you anchored in? If you can't anchor in something that's bigger than me, which should be you, then baby, you can't anchor in me, because we only give people who we have, and I'm going to experience you at the depth of who you are. And so a man who is unstable, right, our double-minded is unstable in all his ways. I'm not looking for an unstable husband, and I'm not looking for a husband who can't cover me when I am being fickle, because I'm also still human. So I need a man who can say, hold on. My high function and low functioning, terms, who says, baby, right now you and your low functioning. So what I need to do is cover you. And covering sometimes looks like pray for me. Covering sometimes looks like let me sit in this room and just do whatever I'm going to do while you go in the other room and you tell God, have your way in here. Have your way in here.
I want you to explain that to people when you talk about high function and low function, those that haven't, because I started laughing at it because we had a conversation and we was talking about, I need a man that is high functioning, but he has to have duality.
He's a hybrid.
He's a hybrid. He needs to be able to deal with the low functioning that you have a tendency to operate in. Explain what that means.
Meaning, he's high functioning enough to be able to make sure our relationship functions at a healthy level without impairment. We're not abusing each other. We can have conversations. We have emotional intelligence. We can talk, agree to disagree. We can trust each other. We're rooted in those high functioning things. Everything is not about investigation of what's going on. No, we're mature. He can feel what he feels and regulate his emotions so that we're not having chaos all the time. He can disagree with me and still go to bed and love me in the morning, maybe revisit it or let it go and let it take its form, because he has that strong faith in God that it's going to do what it's supposed to do anyways.
Teach.
So go on and just keep loving her. Those are high functioning. He knows how to have real commitment is high functioning, which is he knows how to stay and stick and be while the love comes in and the love comes out, because that's a real relationship. The love looks different every season, every year, depending on what you're doing, what he's doing, what you're going through. Love just looks different. It feels different. And commitment is doing what you said you was going to do regardless of how you feel. Can he stick in it and not go outside of these doors, right? While we get this thing back on track.
Good.
And for women, because sidebar real quick, women too, I don't want to just get on the men. Can you, high function for a woman in a relationship, sis, can you let him be in the space he's in without having to continuously suppress him or put this pressure on him to be in a different form, because you need him to show up differently. You need him to express in that moment. You need him to be emotional. Hold on. What if this is what he needs so he can be better for you? Can you, the Bible says that it's better for a man to sleep on the roof of the house than deal with a woman, I'm going to go with my terms, who can't shut the up. The Bible didn't say that part, but that's how I'm looking at it. Meaning.
The Bible says quarrelsome woman.
What does that mean?
It says quarrelsome woman.
What does that mean?
And interpreted by Dr. Bryant, shut the up is what she said.
Meaning, right, this man is system overload already.
Yeah. Yep. And he's frustrated. He's like, let me just get out. Let me get out of here.
And a high functioning woman can say, all right, baby, listen, what do you need right now?
Yeah.
Because the Bible says, love your partner by knowledge of them. Let me know what you need. Because in a marriage, you have to assume different roles and positions. And can you be hybrid enough and flexible enough to assume that while you, this is high functioning now, self-soothe, whether it's self-soothe your emotions, self-soothe, meaning regulate your anxiety, whether it's go read a book, go for a run, go to brunch, have a glass of wine, have a cup of tea, while he has his moment with himself. And his moment with himself is his moment with God.
There it is.
That's all it is. And let him return and say, okay, so what's next? What do you need? You still need more of that, more of this. So my point is that's the high functioning piece, right? When I say hybrid is when, let's just speak for myself, my high functioning can sometimes still mirror, very rare because I've done a lot of work, but it still comes up, an abandoned woman. So when I clench, remember I just said life is meant to be lived like this in surrender mode. When I clench, abandonment is just abandonment shows up in control. Okay, either you're sabotaging, which is still a form of control. We talked about that last night, or you're controlling, saying, no, it needs to be this way or that way, because what you're trying to control is not so much that person. You're trying to control what they activate in you. So I'm trying to control you to stay right there and put, because if you move to the left or to the right, then guess what? You may activate and inflame my abandonment. If it won't activate and inflame my abandonment, I don't have the need to control it. There's a difference, right? So low functioning is, you and I are in this relationship. My abandonment inflames. You haven't done anything. It could be the time of the month. Hormones are just going, crazy. And I'm now my abandonment's inflamed, and I get to clenching, and I say, I don't
want this no more.
Not even this. It's more of like, okay, every day of the week, you go to the gym and work out. You come home at 7:30. Now, for the last 5 years,
you've done the same thing.
You've never, ever came home at 7:45. But this one time in 5 years, you come home at 7:36. That's 6 minutes later. Because you stop at the gas station, didn't text me and say, baby, can you get gas real quick?
Yeah.
You come in, my abandonment's inflamed. I flip out. Where have you been? This is banana. This is where I say by low functioning, right? You're able to stay in your high functioning, but you understand the low functioning, so that you're not judging me and you're not staying high functioning, which can be transactional at times, and saying you're tripping, I'm pulling out. This is too much for me. So now what you did was you dipped down to the low functioning with me, and now we both cannot function in this relationship. Hybrid means I need you to say high functioning and go, okay, my baby, my woman's in this low functioning space because she's honest and we are really intimate, not sex, the true intimacy, which is vulnerability and knowing each other. I know she has these abandonment issues. I ain't experienced them in 3 years, but this is the day it's here.
Yep.
Baby, listen, I went to the gas station. This is what I got and what I did. Let me pray over you. Let's have a conversation about it. What do you need in this moment for you to be good?
That part.
And in the 5 years we've been together, 3 years, the 1 year, the 2 years, you tell me one time I gave you a reason not to trust me.
There it is.
And if there's no reason, then she has to regulate her emotions to get herself to the high functioning place to say, baby, you know what? You're right. I'm tripping. Maybe I need 5 minutes. Maybe I need let me go work out. Let me run 4 miles. Whatever I need to do to regulate this, to get my cortisone levels low, my dopamine to be released. Let me do this. I'll let you know if I need something more.
Good.
Now, after the man has done everything, because there's sometimes a man can do all that and the woman is still in her space. I want to give advice for that because it happens like that a lot. After the man has done everything he's supposed to do and say he really was not cheating and not doing nothing wrong. He apologizes. He said, what do you need? He talks to her and she's still inflamed. Because I've been there. I've been where the man has done everything you can possibly humanly think of. And I done packed my bag and I'm talking about book my flight. And he
No, you didn't. No, you didn't book the flight.
I told him book it. Get me out of here. Laterris, at this point, he pacing the floors. Poor baby. He's just pacing the floors. And he's just like, he's just, you could tell he's like, Lord, how do I get her to stay? What did I do? Because he didn't do anything wrong. And I'm disclaiming.
You done told him to book the flight?
Book the flight. And I told him to pack me up. Get me out of here. But look at the intensity. God. Get me out of here. Do you see the inflammation?
Yeah.
Get me out of here. Book the flight. Now, mind you, I think it's 1 a.m. Extreme abandonment. I'm in my low function.
Yeah.
Then I took a seat back and he came over. He said, what do I do when you get like this? What do I do?
He said, what do I do?
What I do? And something in me, which is the high functioning part of me, this is, thank God that I'm a hybrid, said, you're tripping. He didn't do anything. And I said, you know what? It's not you. You've done everything you're supposed to do. You did everything right. Thank you. I said, now it's up to me to make a decision. If I am going to pull out of this and go into a healthy space with you and be forgiving and lock back in, or if I'm going to continue to be in my abandonment, sabotage this and get the heck out of here.
You could do that in real time. You did that in real time.
I did that sitting on that couch with that man sitting next to me. And he said, okay, what does that mean? I said, give me some time to snap out of this. Because,
so you knew that.
Because it's just a decision. But my emotions are so inflamed that it is blurring my decision making.
Yeah.
So I sat, I prayed, and I said my affirmation, God, louder.
Yeah.
Louder. And then I started to, this is what I do by self-talk. I started to, by high-functioning, healed self, start to talk to my low-functioning, broken self.
Teach.
And the high-functioning self said, let me explain something to you. You're always sabotaging. You're always at the table. And in relationships, you have no place being at. You did this in the last relationship. We're not doing this time. So whatever you need to do, wherever you need to go, you need to figure it out. I looked over at that man. I said, baby, we good. And he looked at me, though, kind of crazy. Like what you just said, like, did she just do that in real time? But he had this look like, what the hell just happened? like, are you bipolar?
That's what I'm about to say. Exactly.
No, it was, I was processing. I was literally using my own tools on myself. And I'm telling you.
Were you saying the stuff verbally?
No, inside my mind. But in my mind, it was this conversation that it was like
louder.
No, it was this, and I'm on the couch and it's just doing this thing and I'm feeling it. And all of a sudden, my high functioning self, thank God, was able to overpower my low functioning self, and the low functioning self regulate and dissipate it. And I just had I explained to him, this is what happens. And hopefully I can always do that. If not, just please don't let me leave. And he was still trying to figure out, well, what does that look like? Because this was a man who was very, a real alpha, in the sense of a real alpha is not a hostile man. A real alpha is not, no, that's called testosterone. Okay. A real alpha man is strong, vertical, loving, gentle, but he also has his own boundaries.
Yeah.
That says, baby, hold on now. What does that look like? Because I don't want to be putting hands on you to not get you to leave, because I love you and my love is healthy.
Yeah.
And it's gentle. So we had to explain that, but I said that to say that is what the hybrid looks like. So I'm not perfect. And with me dating now and my husband, he is also has to be built a certain way that understands. If he doesn't understand it, he wants to know, how do I do that with you? Because I am going to be with you forever. And so because I'm going to be with you forever, I got to learn too how to regulate you. This is a team spirit thing.
Yes.
This isn't well, they shall probably figure it out.
Yeah.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Or you should have had that fixed before you came to me.
Because that's never going to happen.
Exactly.
Nothing's ever going to be completely fixed before anything happens. It just doesn't work like that.
Yep.
And I tell people, you got to go broken. You got to go scared. You got to go unfixed. You got to go hurt. You got to go halfway healed. The point is, you just have to make sure that you go. And when you arrive, then be ready to assume whatever role or position you need to, and trust yourself and God in the process to say, when I get there, I'll have the tools. I just told you God meets you where you are.
Teach.
So when you get there, he'll be there. He says, in hell. There you, let me tell you something. That's why he's God. And his thoughts ain't our thoughts. Because baby, I don't want to go to hell with you.
Yeah.
But if I have to, meaning you're my husband. This is why, another reason why I've taken my time to get married. Because people can say they respect marriage and the sanctity of it, but they're showing up to a marriage that says, as long as we in heaven,
I'm
put
here.
me on the list.
Yeah, I'm here.
But as soon as we get to hell,
I'm gone.
let me pivot.
Yeah.
But a lot of marriages, and I'm not saying all, but I've been doing in my field for 17 years, and I've yet to see a marriage that's gone 15, 20, 30, especially talking about these 50-year marriages that haven't gone through hell.
Yep.
And hell. The only recipe to a long-term marriage is stay. Keep your ASS there and be in commitment. And then you have to learn, the Bible says marriage is for disciplined people.
Yes.
Discipline means when we in hell, am I disciplined enough, Lateris, to self-soothe? That's emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever you need, and be in this hell with you and sit in there and say, all right, babe, I may need to take it in pockets, and that's okay. Now I'm going to sit in there for 2 hours, but then I got to, but I'm not leaving you. One thing you can count on me is I'm going to be here. Now, I don't know how I'm going to show up all the time, but I will be here. But that's marriage.
And that's all that's necessary, like to just show up.
I'm here.
And that's what's so beautiful about it. And by the way, you're doing a great job not cursing. I'm proud of you.
I done spelled it out, but I'm trying. God, I can't hear you. I need you louder.
You're doing an amazing job, Dr. Bryant. Listen, so you've been on this journey. Have you always wanted to get married? Because a lot of times people assume somebody may be 42 years old and say that they've always desired marriage, but then you'll find out that maybe in the last couple of years you only desired it. So have you always desired marriage in your life?
No.
And when did that arise? At what age did you start being intentional to say, you know what, I really do want to get married?
In my mid-30s.
In your mid-30s?
In my mid-30s.
But you had been engaged prior to that, right?
Yes.
So why did you say yes and accept the engagement prior to that, knowing internally that you never wanted to get married to begin with?
Right. Love that question. So I've always wanted to be a mother. And I was raised on principles from my mother, my father, and my grandparents that, marriage and family, right? And so based on principles and coupled with, I didn't ask. I just happened to meet a guy in my 20s, his 20s, early 20s, that was amazing and who knew healthy love. And I didn't. And so he was a beautiful buffer for me. And that's not my words. He would say he's a buffer. I thought we were just going to get married and be together. But he was the facilitator. He was the high functioning when it came to how to facilitate me. He was a sturdy oak. Put it this way. I have yet to be or feel a safe space with a man since that relationship, and that was in my 20s.
Really?
He created such a safe space for me, and let me tie in why that's important. People show up fully where they're safe. And God knew in order to get this woman, her pain and her trauma, in order to get me to externalize what she's been internalizing, she got to be completely safe. And so he put me with the man who could create a completely safe space. What that did was, unfortunately for him, but fortunately for me, or maybe fortunately for him, I was fully authentic. I was fully myself. He got all of the loving, nurturing, affectionate, like pouring into him, treating him like a king. But he also got the intense trauma, abandon, neglect, toxicity. I'm a young girl. I don't even know that I have this trauma. I don't even know that I'm just this dysfunctional. And when I say the duality, all of it was there.
He said something profound to you, right? Mm-hmm. What did he say that was so profound to you about what you desire?
Yeah, we talked about that last night, and he was right. He said, and this was like, we were literally planning our engagement party. He said, baby, I'm just a buffer for you. And now, mind you, in my mind, I'm like, we get married. So, and it would hurt me when he would say it, not because I thought he would leave, because I was hurt for him saying that. He said, I'm a buffer for you. He said, you're too insecure for the man that you really want right now. And that was in my 20s. I was like 22, 23 when he said this to me. And I'm like, what? He goes, hear me when I say this. He said, I'm a buffer. At some point, you will become secure enough to be with that guy. But right now, you're with me because you are too insecure at this moment to be with who you really want to be. And when I tell you...
When I say that is emotional intelligence on a high level.
And when
shout
I tell
out
you,
to that brother. That
man was on point to the point. And I didn't argue with him. I just was more like, babe, don't say that. We got an engagement party. We're getting married. And I also knew in my heart that he was right. and that I would be leaving like deep, not like forefront. And so a part of me, all of me was trying to save him from a heartbreak I knew he was going to have.
Inevitable. An inevitable heartbreak.
I was trying to save him and say, no, and no, and like, but I'm here and I do love you. And that's not true. And then also because he was such a freaking good man, it was hard to leave because I didn't have infidelity.
And you didn't have a reason to leave. So what happens with people like that suffer from abandonment issues, you try to look for a reason. And then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy because you'll create the reason to leave, but you come with such toxicity that you'll start breaking the very man that you love so much to where he be like, and then you start making him respond.
Hold on. There you go. When I start breaking the man that I loved, who I seen come in as a healthy, loving, innocent man that just wanted to love me. Because he came from, I came from a 2-parent household, but it was my grandparents. He came from 2-parent, his parents, and, no blended family. It's them. They've been together all their life. So he comes from that. But when I start to see that, and he just kept loving me through it. And he kept reminding me, reassuring me, that's cool, but I ain't going nowhere. You know what he told me one time? I just even thinking about it, and he said this to me. He said, because I was trying to be mean, and I was being mean, and I was saying to him, and I was in my abandonment. I was trying to sabotage, and I was trying to get him to leave, so I can prove this abandonment thing, right? Now I didn't know I was doing this, y'all. I'm in my 20s, right? Hindsight, I get it, and I'm telling him, well, leave. I don't want to be with you, and he's like, no, I ain't going nowhere, no. And I'm telling him, he's sturdy in it, no. And I'm like, how can I get him to leave? But listen, but everything in me wanted to make sure he stayed. I didn't want him to leave. I wanted him to reassure me he wouldn't go. And so I get to packing his stuff and I tell him, you know what? Well, I'm going on a date. I'm going to go on a date with someone else. You know what he told me? This is when I knew it was God. Lord have mercy. He said, not baby. He said my full name, Cheyenne. Let me explain something to you. Now, people are going to go crazy over this, but let's get in our mature, high-functioning, emotional intelligence space before I say this, y'all. He said, Cheyenne, if you went out, he said, forget a date. If you went out and had sex with 200-something men, I'm still not leaving. I'm still not going nowhere. And as much as other people and men who aren't mature enough to understand the context of this.
Yeah, it's what he's saying.
It's not what he said. It's what's in the substance of. And when he said that was a moment where I said, I used a curse word, but I said, what the am I doing? Like, yo, what am I doing right now?
That's good.
Like, what? And when I tell you that was a mirror times a mirror, and I sat down and I just started crying. And I said, I'm not really a crier. And I was boo-hooing. And he's just looking at me. And he probably looking at me like this so crazy woman. But he looking at me and I said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'll never, ever abuse you again. Meaning not, but anyway, like emotionally, I'm so sorry. Like, oh my God. And he just looked at me. And from that moment, I shifted. And I stopped emasculating him. I couldn't, like I seen myself. And I was so disgusted and turned off by what I was seeing just through his ability to say, listen, and then we talked about this last night, I'm not marrying or in love with the idea of you. I'm in love with you. And so because I'm in love with you, there ain't no conditions.
Unconditional
because if
love.
I'm in love with the idea of you, I can take this idea. We talked about this.
Take it off.
The jacket, the idea is a jacket. The jacket, go to another woman and say, baby, I like women who wear pink jackets. Put this idea on you.
Yep.
But because he really wasn't, and this is the power of love is not enough to sustain a relationship or a marriage, but the power of love changes like this. And when he did that, I was going, like, what? And so I shifted. But what happened was when I started to shift, this is what happens when you heal, y'all. As I shifted and became different and became more secure and became this, it changed the dynamic of our relationship. Because as the buffer he was sent to be, he had no more, his role was no longer relevant. And so guess what I was doing? Becoming different and healthy, and he didn't know how to facilitate that healthiness. As weird as that sounds. And I knew the best thing I can do, which would be a service to him and I, especially more to him, was to leave.
Really?
and let him be with somebody who I knew could just really be as good as he was. Seriously. And don't get me wrong, I was very good to him. We just
Yeah,
had
but
those
just-
moments
yeah.
where he...
And you're in your 20s.
And he didn't have to, we're in my 20s, and he didn't have to learn. He just knew how to facilitate me. And so, yeah, that's what marriage is, though. If I would have married him, which I don't want to be with him now, but he's an amazing guy. If I would have married him, that is the safe landing that I believe all women deserve. That part of him is what I want. That part of him is what I want my husband to have, is that I'm not leaving. All right, well, I guess we're going to figure this out. All right, well, so you still hungry? Okay, so, I'm getting in this bed.
Yep.
All right, well, so we both mad then. Okay, so we got tickets to the concert. Get dressed.
How many times have you been engaged, Cheyenne?
I've been engaged 4 times, and I called off 2 weddings because the first 2 were just engagements. We didn't have like the wedding plan,
Right.
save the dates, a dress. The last 2 I had wedding dresses, engagement party, bachelorette party,
Wow.
wedding date, save the dates, shipped out, invitations, people booked their flights. Yeah.
So what do your friends say to you and family members, knowing that? Would they even take it seriously if you got engaged again?
They say, girl, call us on the day of the wedding and we'll show up. Other than that,
Tom, I ain't booking no flights.
leave
I
us
ain't that.
alone. Like,
When you look back at that, and you've always said that you had amazing fiancés and all that type of stuff. I never hear you discredit the men that you dated, and you take full accountability for the relationship going awry. Why is that? Is that true, or is it that they were so great and you were so? I don't even want to say toxic. I would just say this because certain things just not supposed to work out. I do understand that. Is it they just wasn't supposed to work out, that you understood it? Or do you believe that you were so unhealthy in all those experiences that you were the cause of the relationship not working?
no, I don't think I was the sole cause of it not working. There were things that they did as well that, my first fiance, we just had 2 different dreams. We grew apart. He wasn't a man that was really into, and every time I talk about this, I'm still protecting both of them.
Yeah, of course.
Just to be honest.
As you should.
He just wasn't a man who wanted to work or have work ethic. He made some money, but I was a breadwinner. And then he got to the point where he openly, honestly told me, listen, if it's just you, me, a dog in a shack, I'm good with that. And I openly told him, but baby, I'm not. So where do we go from here? Because I'm going to build this thing. And so I'm going to build this thing means I'm going to have to carry you and sustain, because you're not asking me to carry you, but you're saying, I don't want that, which is fair, right? So with him, I just said, well, we're growing apart. We're just going 2 different ways. I'm just not okay with having a man who is okay with pretty much being like the house husband. To be honest with you, he was just like, I'll be the house husband. I don't want that. And I'm a hybrid. The submissive piece of me, the very soft feminine piece of me, couldn't tap into my intense submissive part because that was a bit too beta for me. And I don't mind, I like a hybrid man, an alpha submissive man. I don't mind you going in your beta and going in your alpha. That's sexy to me. But it can't be to the point where my alpha always has to be present for us to be equally yoked. That's not fair to me. The second guy, one, he has 2 beautiful daughters who are adults, and there were some things that were inappropriately done in that relationship, not infidelity, not cheating. And because regardless of what those things were, he was still very good to me. And I have the utmost respect for his daughters. There are certain things that I won't expose because I would never want them to look at him in a way that's his, responsibility to have that conversation with him. His daughter even asked at some point when I called off the wedding months later, because we were still having a relationship. We were pretty close at least. And she was like, what happened? And I even told her, you got to have that conversation with your father.
Yeah.
Because I explained, even though me and him are not together, there was still a wife or, future stepmom kind of role, not kind of a role I would have taken. And I'm not fleeing from that just because, I still respect him. But there were things that have to do with some hostility on his end that I knew being married and pregnant and having a family with that kind of hostile environment would not be healthy, because I also know that as loving and relaxed as I like to be, if you're going to create a war zone in this house and think that you can be hostile in a certain energy, it's going to be a problem.
Number 3.
It's going to be a problem.
Guy number 3, what happened?
Oh, well, that was it. I only had 2 guys I called off the wedding. The first 2, I don't
when you was
really
engaged. Oh, so you don't count the 2.
I don't count them because it was like in my
You had a
early
ring on-
20s.
you had a ring
I had a
on,
ring.
didn't
Yeah.
you?
So those relationships kind of just like dwindled out just
Okay.
because I was in my 20s. But the last 2, which were, we had weddings and dresses, we were really going to get married. The family was tied in. But I'm happy I called him off because, one, let me say this. If I was going to base being with a man with kids off of my last fiance who had 2 beautiful daughters, I would do it. Because the way he structured that, to his defense, was A1. I mean, we had no issues. There was nothing. The girls would even call me and say, hey, Shy, what are we doing for Dad's birthday? What are we doing for Father's Day? What are we doing for Thanksgiving? I would cook and call everybody over and have family meetings and be like, we blend in this family because we're about to get married and I'm going to get pregnant. So, I even had conversations with the girls one-on-one, like, if you need anything, you have questions about me when I first met them, ask me.
Which
I
is
wanna
ironic.
answer.
Which is ironic because now one of your core values is never to date or marry someone with kids. But you had a great experience with a man with kids. Now why?
And we talked about this too. I love this. There were times where we'd be laying in the bed, day goes perfect, nothing happened, and we're getting closer to the wedding, or not even that. We're just engaged, and it would come up, and I'd always be able to be open and talk. I'd say, I'm having those feelings again. And he's like, because he knew from the beginning I didn't want to be with a man with kids. He knew too. I was very honest. We just happened to fall in like and then start really, being into each other. And before you know it, I'm living there. And now we're in a relationship. And in which, by the way, he was 14, 15 years older than me. So coming back to what I was saying, and he would say, well, what's those feelings? I'm like, my values, my preferences are starting to inflame in the sense of, you don't want a man with kids, Shy. And but we would maturely talk about it. And he would say, baby, listen, well, he would tell me, well, what are you going to do? Because not that I would ever want to, I love my girls, but they're here, they're here. I'm a father. So
he's saying nothing I can change.
What can I do for you with the reality? And I would say, I don't think there's nothing you can, because again, it was just something I didn't want as a preference, not
Explain
something
why.
he did.
Explain why, so people can understand that.
Well, because for me, my idea, for me personally, of a family is me and my husband and our kids. 1. 2, it's not the kids, because I love kids. Me and his daughter would go work out together and go eat. And when I would invite him, she would be like, why you got to invite him, right? Like, we want our time.
One-on-one
and
time
I said,
with
girl,
you.
this your daddy, because he going to come, right?
Yeah.
Always having his back. But I would say, but for me, I don't believe that anybody, male or female, it's a preference, has to take on you and your decisions previous to me. I think we all have the right to say, listen, I love you, but I prefer not to take on your decision, even let's say to be an attorney. Let's take out kids to be an attorney, because you travel a lot.
Yep.
I don't want a man who travels a lot. Doesn't make you a bad man. To me, that's no difference than me saying, I don't want to take on a man who has beautiful kids, who I probably would love and blend with, but I don't want to have to help you manage your past decisions. When I come in, I don't come in with kids. If a man tells me, Doc, look, man, I love you. I'm in love with you. I feel like you're my soulmate. But this career thing, I want a woman who's at home barefoot in the kitchen. I do, right? But you travel and you're on the road and you're a powerhouse. Does that make him a bad man? No, it makes him say, your decision, Doc, to be a doctor and be successful and do these things, I don't want to have to help you manage that. And I have every right to say, you know what? I'll either shift or I respect that.
Yep.
And it's not a big deal, because I meet so many men who are amazing with kids. My ex-fiance, he was a great guy with some things that, again, I won't mention, that were just like, this can't sustain long-term. But I just told him, like, there's nothing you can do. It's me who doesn't want a man with kids. And when I left him, which was about 6 years ago, I have never dated a man with kids. And I've never calibrated. So to the women out there who are like me, with or without kids, men out there with or without kids who want a partner with no kids or a certain partner, let me tell you something. When people used to tell me, oh, there ain't no men out there with no kids, or, oh, girl, there ain't a lot of men out there with kids. I'm not looking for a lot of men. I'm looking for one man.
There it is.
Okay, so, and in them 6 years, I found many of those one men with no kids. And let me say, what I love about God, he allowed me to experience a man with kids and without. When I'm with the men without kids, not the man himself, I'm talking about me in my own preference and gut because he has no kids, a different flow, a different me. And my spirit says, this is it. And so guess what? Just like God gave back the time that the cankerworms and the locusts took, and God has yet, Lateris, God has yet to return a request void. And because of that, I'm going to trust God and not y'all and not even you, because I know the way that God's shown up in my life and delivered. God telling me right now, woman, listen, how much more I got to do to prove to you that what you want, it's going to come when I know you ready for what you asking for.
And what I love about it is that what you said is you live in a place of realism. You said, because I heard you say this in the interview, and because I know that my desire is a man with kids, now I have to date younger, but I have to also deal with the maturation phase of a younger man. Yeah. And so that's why I like it when people are intuitive enough to say, because some people are like, I want a man that don't have kids, and it's like, okay, but you didn't adjust, you didn't know how to pivot, so you're in your mid 40s or whatever, and you're dating guys around that thing, and then now he's like, well, I want kids.
Wait, and I had to do that. No, you're so on point, because my ex-fiance is 14 years older than me. So I was the opposite. Yeah. I used to be like, I'll never date a younger dude. Like, oh my God. Because I was so mature. My career happened early. I bought my first house at 19. I mean, what am I going to do with a young man, a young boy in my mind? Yeah. But as I got older, here I go talking to God. God said, okay, what if I told you your husband's younger? I was like, oh my God, come on, God. You always try to switch up the game. I thought we was just running an easy route. You want me to go up 5 and in 10?
I see that through an audible.
Right. And so I said, okay. And he goes, okay, and you saying you want a man with no kids. I agree with you. He said, that's within my will. I said, okay. He said, but he's going to be younger. I said, what does that mean?
He said, how young?
He said, you don't have patience. I said, oh, damn. He said, you're pivot quick. I said, oh my God. And I said, how young? But what he did was in the 6 years is literally, they've been all younger men. And when I tell you the adjustment, the first time I dated a younger guy, it was challenging for me because I found him less valuable in so many ways, because I'm like, the wisdom's not there, the experience not. And then my patience, I used to say, listen, if you want me to stay, meaning like if we're at his house having a good time, if you want me to stay, you're going to have to relax, meaning emotionally, right? Like, no, seriously. But I would say it as a grown woman.
You said relax.
Meaning like you're going to have to get some control over your emotions in the sense of feeling a certain way for me or not being able to engage in a conversation without being inflamed. Okay. Right? Because, when you're young, you don't have the gauge. You're just emotional and you're reactive and you're just in love or I'm leaving. But if you want me here, I want to be here, but we have to have a certain environment. So there goes that patience. That was 6 years ago. Now come current day, even the guys I date now, I'm not exclusive. I'm still single, but one of the guys I date we talked about that happens to be younger. And I have a better understanding of the patient. So when certain things happen, I go back into my conversation with self and God and I go, oh, okay, that's the patience part. And God goes, that's it, baby. That's it. I say, oh, okay, I had to maybe act. But to his defense, he is actually, knock on wood, thus far has been very mature in a lot of ways, but I still make sure I remind myself, okay, this guy is still younger and I have to have that patience. And I say, would I rather have patience with a younger man, or would I want to deal with my spirit constantly uneasy because I'm going against my values because this man is amazing, but he has kids. And so I can't fully unpack and connect with him because the barrier between us is these kids. I said, no barrier, because I'll unpack fully with this man. And I'll go all the way in with this man to the point where we're having kids in a family. That's good. So for me, I'm clear on what I want. And my wide road, which is destruction, says the Bible, is now become a narrow road, which is happiness. And for me, when you get narrow, even if what you're asking for hasn't manifested yet, you're still very happy because you're clear. Clarity is something that gives you peace and what I call God's peace and happiness.
Good. When I say I love it, and I want people to take away that you don't have to have a scarcity mindset
that's it.
when dating, that we serve a God of abundance. We serve a God of intentionality. We serve a God that will grant you the desires of your heart, and the very desire that was placed in your heart, he granted that. He planted that seed inside of you. And so and like you said, I just need one. And so not to have a scarcity mindset and to say, and that's why I try to tell people all the time, date based on your core values. Because anytime you come out of alignment with what your core values are, and then you end up dating outside of that, and you go, I knew, and it don't work out, you go, I knew I shouldn't have did that. And the worst thing you can say to somebody is that, man, I should have never dated you in the first place, because I knew at the very beginning this wasn't going to work. And they looking like, well, I wish you would have told me that, because I wouldn't have dated you either. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because at the very beginning, you're betraying yourself.
Ooh, you're breaking your own heart.
There it is.
And I love what you said really quick, because I know we're wrapping, but you said date based on your core values.
Yes.
That goes to me saying, listen, y'all, stop just looking for love. Love is not enough. The Bible says it too. Love is not enough. What he said, when you say core values, is the other components, the likability, the conduciveness, and the compatibility.
Yep.
That's the stuff that will keep you tied in and locked in and fused and plugged in. Love, we love our kids. We love our parents. We love family members that we cannot stand.
Yep.
Cannot stand, but doesn't mean we don't love them. Don't mean if they need us, we won't show up. But you don't want a marriage where if he or she needs me, I'm going to show up, but we homeless over here.
Yep.
No. And so for me, I look for the likability. I like a man with no kids.
Yeah.
Right? I like a man who's anchored in God. I like a man that I can bounce scriptures off real quick.
Yes.
I like a man who's built a certain way. And another thing, start choosing people who are built the way that is conducive for you. Not someone who's water and you really want wine. I said it over and over again. We are not Jesus. We cannot turn water to wine at all. Because if women could, baby, listen, we can't do that.
That's good.
So we gotta see people for who they are and ask ourselves, is this person right here, this conducive for me? This, not the jacket, the ideology that I clothe him with, because every time you take the jacket off, you're breaking your own heart. You're disappointing yourself.
You don't want
and you don't want him no more.
Yeah. And then he spends a lifetime chasing after
Come
you,
on.
pursuing you after the I do. And it's like, why am I still working for you? I thought we were supposed to be resting in marriage and still working on learning each other, but I still feel like I'm chasing after you. And people, that happens so much. And you even talked about the statistics of divorce that, 85%, I believe, women are the ones that's filing for divorce.
Women file.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, it's like, and that's a whole lot of variables of why that happens. But at the end of the day, people need to find people that they can rest in. People that when they say I do to, they say I do to this version. Whatever this is that's coming, I do. And then also have in the back of your mind that you have to continue saying I do, because people evolve, people change. The person that you married at 27 ain't the same person at 37 and 47. They're evolving. They experience losses of loved ones. God forbid, but you lose a child. That's a whole different variable that you're dealing with. You're dealing with loss of parents at a certain age. How is that person now without spending Mother's Day and Father's Day with their parents? Who is that person? And so you have to continue to say I do to people. But listen, I'm very hopeful for you. It's interesting. Like I told you before, I can't wait to see the guy that captures your heart and your mind and gets you down the aisle to say I do. Because I know how analytical you are. I know how, because I know you think your brain be like, you doing all that, but I got a chance to see that little girly side of you. And I was like, because a lot of times people look like, but she tough, she hard.
What'd you think of it? I love that. You got to see it for a couple hours, and it was cute.
I said, that's
and we both were there.
Yes.
We both was in our healthy little girl, little boy. It was cute.
But that's what I'm saying. That is the part that gets you to I do.
Yes.
That's the part that gets you continually to say I do, and to get you resting in marriage where you can have fun and play with your mate and whatnot. Because at first I was a little worried about you, Cheyenne. I got to admit it. I was like, this girl called off 4 engagements. I know women that can't get one. She called off 4. And she admits that she is a part of the problem. We all are part of the problems when things don't work out. But she admittedly says that. She says that she met good guys, where a lot of women say, I've never met a good guy. You say, I've met good guys and it didn't work out. So I said, yeah, she the problem. It's going to be very hard for her to find somebody that she gets married to. But when I got a glimpse of that little girl in you, I said, oh, she's hopeful. She's a hopeful romantic, not a hopeless romantic, a hopeful romantic, where she says, I desire intentional love. And at first I thought that maybe the bar was set too high, but it's not. At first I was like, she probably looking for this perfect guy. He has to be this. He has to make this kind of money. He has to do all this or whatever. And then the more I got to talking to you, I said, it's not that. She is dispelling my prejudices that I'm putting on her already. I'm thinking like, oh, she think this, she in LA, she only wants this type of guy. And then I started talking to you, I said, no, it's not that. She just wants a resting place.
There you go.
She wants to be covered, and she wants to be covered properly. And so often when you talk about love, you talk about your father, who was like, shoot, he was the epitome of a player. He's a gangman, he's a thug, he all this type of stuff.
But
and you call that covering.
But he was a dad. He was a father. He didn't play about us. He has 5 girls and I say 2 boys because he also claims my mother's son too. My brother Shane as his son. But one thing about my father, he didn't play, in the streets, but he didn't play about us.
That's
and
good.
He covered me. We talked about this last night. He covered me. I'm talking about financially, emotionally. If I had a problem, I told you I was in Oregon cutting up with my first fiance. And I said, I called my dad and we were on the phone for 2 hours. The whole argument, I'm arguing with my fiance. I'm on the phone with my daddy and I'm cursing my fiance out. My daddy's saying, baby, just get your stuff and get to the airport. And I'm saying, I'm going to kick the door down. He's like, don't kick the door down.
Just walk out.
Just walk out. And, and so, baby, you get more bees with honey if you start talking to men like this. Baby, don't talk to a man like that. He was baby, don't wear the pants in the relationship. Baby, stop. So he was at daddy. We was on the phone for hours. I'm talking about 4 or 5 hours of him just giving me wise counsel, just facilitating my emotions. And I talked to him until I got to the airport, boarded my plane. He said, baby, how are you feeling? Are you okay?
That's good.
And I said, but I'll be okay. I'll be okay, daddy. So I got home and I went straight to him and he had his Jack and Coke and he said, let's sit and talk. So he was a father. Yeah. Right. And that plays a big difference in how a woman chooses.
That part.
I'm not choosing out of despair. In all due respect to the women who are fatherless girls, because that's real. That's real. But I'm not choosing out of despair. And before he passed away, I used to call him randomly and say, Daddy, thank you. He go, for what? I said, for not making me a fatherless daughter. And he said, oh, baby, I love you. You're welcome.
That's so important.
So I never knew life. When I say we had a real marriage, death is what did us part. Nothing else with my father. And so it's important. It's important. But really quick, you said something. I love everything you said. I just love. Remember we talked last night when I said, no, Terrence, I was like, I want that high school kid love. I said, with adult responsibilities and responsibility. And what I say?
Did you say vulnerability?
No, I said adult responsibility and maturity.
And maturity, yeah.
But I want what you just said, that little girl, little boy, we're 15, 16 in high school, we're just in love. But we're adults now, so we are responsible. We're mature.
Yes,
but
the balance.
The balance.
Your word hybrid.
Hybrid. I need a hybrid.
The word today is hybrid. You want hybrid love. Sino, can you throw me this amazing hoodie that I stole from Cheyenne? Throw that to me. This right here. This is a hoodie that she said she's going to put on her website. But this right here, this is what I love right here. High value and high functioning. This is the word. This is the statement of the century, because you have coined this phrase and you just broke down what that truly meant or whatever. How can people even pick up this hoodie? I know you got a book out, you got a book coming. Do you have a base camp, a site that people can go and pick up merch and pick up all things?
Yes.
Cheyenne.
So
Arsenio want me to show his hoodie.
Oh yeah, that's his. That's his.
This is his right here. What does that say?
No low functioning behavior allowed. Now, Nick Cannon. Y'all will see it on Nick's show. We did some more sessions. This is Nick's daily affirmations. I brought him this sweater, and his homework is to read it if you don't wear it once a day. Nick, that's your homework.
If you don't
Nick.
wear it.
You don't wear it.
Amen.
But you can get merch. I'm on tour every weekend for the next 6 months. So every single location, if you go to any of my speaking events or tour dates, we have merch, we have t-shirts, hoodies, and books.
Many people want to get this on this website. We're
Yes,
going to get on the website.
and it'll be on our website.
Yeah.
Yes. By the time this airs, it'll be on the website.
It'll be on the website.
Okay?
We're going to air this coming up Wednesday. Did you know that?
Oh, shoot. Well, it should be on the website by then. In the meantime,
you better come to one of the shows.
Do some pre-sale. Come to a show.
Definitely, man. Listen, Cheyenne, I thank you for your vulnerability. I thank you for your transparency. I thank you for not trying to act like you have it all together, but to be able to say that you're in process, and in process, you will progress.
Yes.
So you will always progress in process. And so I love that you are a woman that says, this is the evolution of me at 42 years old. This is where I am. This is where I am from a career standpoint. This is where I am financially. One thing that I do respect that you even talk a lot about your money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you don't throw around all that stuff. And in every conversation I've had with you, you don't ever throw all that stuff around, which is really, really cool. You always speak from a place of core values, who you are, and some of those soft skills that you have and what you desire, and accountability.
Yeah, because you told me I was soft last night in a good way. You said, "Yeah, you're very soft and feminine." Like,
because I didn't believe it at first. I said, "This girl's a thug." Because I said, "You be on the phone, you be blank and cussing, watching football."
Yeah,
and all
but
this.
at first you said you can fight.
Yeah,
I said real good.
I said, Cheyenne, I bet you can fight, huh?
And then after a while, you were like, "You are a hybrid. Like you are so soft and like feminine." What the heck just happened?
Because you'll switch, you know what I'm saying? But you did say something. You said that this is so important for men to hear, is that your feminine will acquiesce to a masculine. And so if you're around a masculine man,
100%.
that you have a tendency to just be like, well, let me just dial that back. Let me rest. Let me be covered. Let me be taken care of. And that's what you said. And I was like, oh, wow. I never really thought of it
And
like
really
that.
quick, say what you said about women, because women need to hear this. About the women who say they don't want that. They need their space. Remember you talked about that?
Yeah, you have women that be like, listen, because I didn't, I think that the way you operate, you'd be the type of woman that if you marry somebody, they need to live in a whole other state.
And
you're like, no, I'll pack up, I will go there.
And I
can
want
work
him
anywhere.
in my skin. I want to be with him. I love spending time. I want to be as in each other's skin as much as we can. And you said that's different because a lot of women, successful women especially, they want their space. They want a man away. And what did I say?
Yeah. What did you say?
I said that's because a lot of women have never been covered.
They've never been covered.
And that's because a lot of women, even if they had their father, he wasn't covering them.
There it is.
And so it's not that they don't want it, it's that they've never had it. And they are in fear that it would never come. So they say, you know what? I don't want it. So to protect myself from the heartbreak or the disappointment of you not doing it, like I've never had it done, I'm going to say I don't want it. But I've been covered. And so for me, it is just a part of my fabric. It's you can't not cover me as a woman, even with just you and I as friends. You covered me the whole time I've been here. The whole time you covered me. I'm talking about from airport to here. Not even just saying as a gentleman, I'm talking about your energy. You as a man. So that comes natural when all you know is I'm used to being covered. I had a father that covered me. And so this is why fathers, you teach what you know, you create who you are. A woman is what her daddy makes her, and a man is what his mama makes him. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that.
That's good.
Pay attention to that.
You're just always dropping gems. I'm trying to wrap this up, but now I'm sitting in that. The man is who his mother makes him. That's good. We're going to chew on that. Hey, listen. Y'all go follow my homie. Of course, you got a whole lot of followers. She probably won't even notice you if you're following. I was playing. How many you got on Instagram? A million something? 2 million? 2 million?
2 million and some change. Yeah.
Some change. I bet you we could talk all about how that, as you saw yourself climbing, like what in the world is going on. But
it was everything I prayed for. We talked about that last night with my dating situation. And it was everything I kept telling God, like, what are you taking so long for? Why are you taking so long? You're taking so long. And he just, like he does, he said, girl, I'm working. You just keep showing up. You ain't ready. I'm working. And then the moment that he knew, the levee broke. And he was like, all right, you want it? Gas.
Here go the floodgates. Here the floodgates.
And then he said, who's your daddy? I said, you do it every time. You do it every time.
Who's your daddy?
Yes. So, but again, it happens, but please be very clear on your request. When I tell you no request, bad or good, returns void, I mean that.
There it is.
And every request that I've had, I'm living in it. Like when I tell you I'm living in it, I don't know if people do this and I think it's good. Sometimes I pray and I pray for God. I say, God, you know what? Does anybody ever pray for you? Does anyone ever pray for you? And I just start praying for God. And I said, I pray, God, that you have whatever you need. You don't need anything, so you say, but you have whatever you need. Does anyone ever pray for you? I'm so grateful that I literally just pray for God. I said, I don't want nothing. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you.
You prayed for God.
I pray for God.
We're
I
gonna
do.
let that go because that right there hit differently. And I know you got a session you got to hop on, so I'm trying to respect your business. Praying for God. Dang, that's a different perspective. Y'all give it up for Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, who prays for God. Stay tuned to the end for a letter to my future wifey. Been writing these love letters to you. Ladarian, thrusted suddenly into Child Protective Services in 2015. My nephew, Black, a boy. The likelihood of being adopted outside of kinship, slim to none. Armani, 16 years old, Black, a boy, with 5 years in the foster care system before I even knew his name. The likelihood of ever being adopted, yep, you guessed it, slim to none. While Ladarian and Armani were trying to survive and barely thrive in an overpopulated and underfunded foster care system, I was living my own life, doing well professionally. Having been a single father with a daughter who at that point was doing well in college, it was my time to live my life, right? Wrong. I felt unsettled, tireless, agitated. There are just too many of our Black children stuck in ambiguity and in the limbo of the foster care system. In 2017, I legally adopted my nephew, Ladarian. Fast forward to 2019, I had no ties to this other young king, but I felt God instructed me to adopt him also, and I obeyed. Starting over with parenting should have been enough, right? Working with various foster care and adoption agencies to help bring awareness to the countless young Black kings in the foster care system should have decreased my agitation, right? Joining the board of directors of Advantage Adoption, an organization that helps find permanent adoptive homes for children in foster care, should have led to some type of resolve, right? No, not at all. None of it felt like I had done enough. I now realize that every one of those experiences was laying the fundamental foundation for my life's mission, Kingdom Royale. Kingdom Royale will be a luxury, state-of-the-art home for foster boys. Our first location will be in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We will utilize the whole person approach that instills identity, empowers them to advocate for themselves, and enlightens them regarding new perspectives and limitless options that they thought were impossible. Though the young kings will attend the local public schools that are in proximity to Kingdom Royale, our at-home curriculum will broaden their worldview through participating in the arts, attending various cultural events, learning about and engaging in multifaceted discussions about current events and even relevant historical context, introducing them to gardening and landscaping and even caring for our animals on our farm and on-site stables. We just launched our Startup Capital campaign with the goal of raising $2.8 million. Now, why $2.8 million? Well, in 2017, I created a web series in which I performed random acts of kindness for targeting the homeless community. One of the most notable successes was that one of the videos went viral, garnering 28 million views. However, one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't raise a single dollar to help in implementing a more sustainable plan for the homeless community. So throughout the years, with much remorse, I reflected on not maximizing that moment. I knew if at that time, just 10% of the viewers donated $1, we would have raised at least $2.8 million that could have really established long-term support for the homeless community, or at least started a long-term initiative to do so. This is my do-over. This is our new beginning. Together, we can attack this at the root by specifically helping our homeless Black boys who are already disproportionately represented in the American foster care system. I'm Laterra Whitfield. I've been nominated for 3 regional Emmys documenting my work with the homeless as well as my personal adoption journey. Despite those accolades, the greatest award for me is truly providing the infrastructure for a transformed life. Visit kingdomroyale.com for more details. Crown a king and make a donation today. Man, I really enjoyed this episode that I did with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. That woman is a force to reckon with. I love how vulnerable she is, how transparent she is, and how she stands 10 toes down on her preferences. And I don't have nothing but respect for that. Well, here's my favorite part of the podcast where I speak to my future wifey. Dear future wifey, as I reflect on the kind of love I hope to give and receive, I realize how important emotional intelligence is in building a meaningful and lasting relationship. That's called EQ. I want us to be connected, not just by shared interests or physical attraction, but by a deep understanding of each other's emotions, needs, and unspoken thoughts. Whether you're full of joy or feeling overwhelmed, I want to be the safe place you can come to, knowing that I'll listen with empathy and respond with love. When conflicts arise, I know they will. I want us to handle them with grace. Instead of reacting impulsively, I strive to respond thoughtfully, acknowledging your perspective and managing my emotions in a way that brings us closer, not further apart. I want to master the art of effective communication with you, the kind that fosters deep intimacy. I want us to communicate openly so we can understand each other's triggers, passions, and dreams. I'm committed to learning how to support you when you need it most. I pray you'll do the same for me. Your future hubby. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Remember, be lit, live intentionally and transparently, and don't stop loving. Make sure to subscribe to our Dear Future Wifey YouTube channel. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We welcome your support. Simply share our podcast with your friends and family.